In this problem, we're being asked to evaluate the opposite of y for 3 different values for y, and then we're going to think about what we find with that. So for this first problem, we're being asked to evaluate, notice the negative sign there in front of the y. So we're being asked to evaluate the opposite of y for y equals negative 3. So let's see what this looks like. So we're given this expression to evaluate, and we're going to evaluate it for negative 3. So what we want to do is we want to take that y and we want to isolate it, okay? Because they're telling us that y is exactly the same thing as negative 3. So if we isolate just the variable y, and we slip the y out of those parentheses, and then we come back in, and we slip in that negative 3, we've just replaced the y with the negative 3. Now we need to be careful not to forget that negative sign that was out in front. Okay, so this is what it looks like now when we've substituted the negative 3 in for the y value. And now we have the opposite of negative 3. Well, we know that the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. So we can write it just 3. If you like to put the little plus sign there just to remind yourself that that's positive, that's fine too. So let's do the same thing for when y is negative 7. So we're still going to have that same expression, the opposite of y, but this time instead of putting in negative 3, we're going to put negative 7 in the place of the y. So we're going to slip the negative 7 there inside those parentheses, and we're going to be sure we don't forget about that negative sign out front. And the opposite of negative 7 is positive 7. Let's do that one last time. I think we're kind of getting the feel of what's going on here. So we're going to take the opposite of y, but this time instead of negative 3 or negative 7, this time we're substituting in negative 12. So negative 12 is going to go into the parentheses, and that negative sign out front, we want to be sure that we remember to bring that along down to the front, and the opposite of negative 12 is just 12. And again, we could put the plus sign here in front if we wanted to. So now let's see what we've got. A friend says that this symbol, this negative y or opposite of y, will always represent a negative number because there's the negative sign. There's that negative sign right in front of it. Is your friend right? Well, I think we see by these 3 examples that our friend isn't right. In each one of these examples, when we have this symbol with the negative sign in front of the y, here's 3 examples of where that comes out to be positive. So how could we help our friend to understand the meaning of this symbol, this negative y or the opposite of y better? And notice the couple of different ways I've been talking about it. Notice I was referring to it when we were doing our substitution. I was talking about it as the opposite of y, because we don't know if y is going to be a positive number or a negative number. So if we think about it not as negative y, we don't want to think about it as negative y. I'm going to write this down over here, and then I'm going to cross it off. We don't want to think of this as negative y, because we don't know if it's going to be a negative number or, as we saw in these examples, a positive number. So if we think about it always as the opposite of y, that's just going to tell me I want the opposite of whatever the value of y is. If y was a positive number, the opposite would be negative. But if y is a negative number, as we saw up in our examples, the opposite is always going to be a positive number.